Welcome to the Knighthood Podcast, a comprehensive weekly analysis of the Newcastle Knights 2024 NRL season, brought to you by Michael and James. So fire up and let's go. Hey everybody, we are missing James tonight. Unfortunately, he's had someone pass away in his family, and we definitely passing on our condolences to him and his family back there in Newcastle. And yeah, sorry, James. Obviously can't make it tonight. He's got bigger and more important things to look after and attend. So yeah, bit sad for you there, mate. And yeah, hopefully everything gets better soon. Yeah, all the best. So welcome to the Knighthood Podcast. Here we are. We're going to do tonight. We'll get straight into it. It's going to be a little bit weird of me not doing it with James. It'll be my first attempt at it, but we'll give it our best crack. So tonight we're going to run through the Newcastle Knights round 19 review and the round 20 preview. Bit of an overview for tonight's show. We'll run through our round 19 review. Then we'll go over the Knighthood Podcast Player of the Year 3-2-1, and we have included James's 3-2-1 in there as well. Then we'll have a look at the NRL ladder, which has been adjusted with no buys. We'll have a quick overview of the season to date for 2024, and then have a quick look at the sections that we've been looking at for the run home. So that'll be the first half of the show. Then in the second half of the show, we'll run over the injury and suspension update for both teams, Broncos this week. We'll run over our team list review, including the ref and the weather. We'll have a look at our analysis for the match, run over our updated betting tally for the season after a loss last week to the Sea Eagles at Brookvale, and then we'll go over our tips for the week. So that's the agenda. Unfortunately, we went down to the Sea Eagles by 38 points. It was 44-6. Pretty tough day at the office for Newcastle Knights, the club and the supporters and everyone involved. It's never easy going to Brookvale to get the chocolates, and we definitely didn't get the chocolates. And my mate Nick here in Sydney, he's been giving it to me so far this week, so hasn't been pleasant. And yeah, it was a very disappointing loss, and I'm sure everyone would agree who's tuned in tonight to watch. So 8 tries to our 1, comprehensively beaten. It was in a nil at half time. Now let's have a look at some stats for the match. All runs 193 for the Seagulls to our 189 in terms of meters made. The Seagulls ran 2,002 meters compared to our 1,635. Post contact meters was pretty even around the 600 mark. Line breaks 8-1. Pretty shocking there. We couldn't make any more than 1 line break, which is pretty terrible stat there for Newcastle. Pretty good indicator of just how poor our attack was, and we do rank second last in the NRL for attack. Certainly didn't help that we had our 4 out of the 5 of the back line definitely missing from the match, and certainly didn't help. State of Origin's got us here. It's got other teams harder. So, we can't complain too much. It's definitely hasn't helped us get the chocolates here in this match. So, yeah, that wasn't great. Other stats that stand out here is our average set distance was down. So even though our forward pack on paper was pretty strong, we still weren't able to get our average set distance, which obviously includes the backs as well. But we were still 7 meters shy per set, which adds up over the course of a match. And, that definitely didn't help us whatsoever. Our kick return meters was 190 to their 160, so that wasn't too bad. We had a few more offloads this week, so maybe they were willing to try and offload a little bit more, but didn't really do a lot. Overall, getting into the kicking, we kicked for 684 meters compared to their 818 meters. Kick defusal, 60% for Newcastle. This is a stat that's been pretty bad for us all year, and it definitely doesn't help at all. I think it's got something to do with the players we've got in the back 5, and even at full strength in our back 5 and our wings, we've definitely we haven't got recruitment right in the outside backs. We're definitely feeling the loss of Dominic Young. And here we are sort of going into round 20 talking about Dom Young. We're a couple of players short in the outside backs, and we did bring it up in our season preview, and the club's done nothing about recruiting anyone else in, and they haven't promoted anyone up from reserves like Mothendriki, he seems like he's a bit of an outcast. He was named to play in reserve grade in the weekend and didn't play. So, yeah, look, I think this is a big, we were exposed on the weekend in regards to our lack of recruitment backup options with our origin players out, and kick defusal is a low stat again. So overall, they kicked a little bit better than us as well. And then look, our defensive stats look pretty good there at 91.33% effective tackle to their 88.86. So we only missed 31 tackles to their 26. So Manly defended also pretty well, but we didn't really throw a lot of them, did we? It was pretty dismal attacking performance from us. And but then on the stats, ineffective tackles, I mean, I don't really know how much that counts. I mean, ultimately, they've scored 8 tries to our 1, so we can't be too positive. But they definitely got us on the edges where we were weak. So maybe our middles held up pretty well, and that's where those stats are coming from. So that might be something that can help us moving into the Broncos match this week. Look, we made 10 errors, and I think I mentioned on last week's podcast that if you're making 10 errors or less, you give yourself a chance to win. So, you've got to roll the dice a little bit and play your hand, and that type of footy is going to produce some errors. But 10 to 8, there's nothing glaring there that sort of stands out. They didn't make too many errors that cost them the match. It was just Manly were too good ultimately in the key areas and in the outside backs. So penalties were pretty even. I thought the ref missed a couple of forward passes. One for the Manly, one for us, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. But yeah, no clear edge, but I thought the refereeing at the start definitely went against us. And if we get into some player stats, the things that stood out to me here is I thought, and this is from Fox.com. So we've got Fletcher Sharp there at 156 meters. That one there stood out to me. I thought he had a really good game. He definitely put in an effort for us, and I guess you can only play off the back of what the forwards are doing and the meters that they're making. And I thought he stood out. And Thomas Cant in his second match there as a Knight in first grade, he made 154 meters. So I think a bit of that went unnoticed. So on the stats, I mean, you can see he's an effort player, and he put in a lot of effort. But let's face it, he got carved up there on the left edge there. So yeah, pretty poor. He wasn't fast enough for the Manly outside backs, and bit of a lamb to the slaughter, unfortunately. But there wasn't many options there for O'Brien to pick, and he went for a player that deserved the play, and he just got a bit outclassed. Let's call it how it is. That's essentially what happened. And they went to his side more than what they went to the other edge. So stats else. Look, I think Leo Thompson, he made 40 tackles, but he's not really, he doesn't really make a lot of meters. And this is something that's standing out to me week on week. A bit disappointed there that he couldn't really stand up a little bit more, but the 40 tackles does take a bit of juice out of you. Crossland made 45 tackles. Lucas on the other side, the right side, he made 157 meters, which is pretty good. One thing I will say is that Lucas doesn't know how to really pass. He's more of a ball runner, and I've noticed this. Sometimes he's got a run first mentality. So I think there was a couple of times in the match that didn't really help us. And that kind of shows the inexperience there in the centres. Croker, I thought he looked okay when he was on, but nothing really stands out there from a stats point of view. I think he's more effective when he starts as opposed to being on the bench. I got to say, I was pretty impressed with Marju's effort. He was, injured in the first half with a bad cork, and I thought he really showed some ticker to stay on the field and get back out there and, play for the team, even though we were getting, pretty much flogged. But yeah, hats off to Marju. I thought he did a pretty good effort to stay in the game. I thought both Safidis, they were good without being great. And I guess the kettle, Adam Elliott, hot and cold. He's cold more than he's hot, this guy. I would like to see, at this stage of the season, Croker to be given the 13 jersey. I think, just not seeing enough from Elliott on a consistent basis. He struggles to make good meters. His link play, is it working? Is it helping us? Our attack was second last in the NRL. I think there's some big question marks over our style of play. And, maybe actually having him in the 13 jersey could make a difference. I'm preferring Croker at this stage in the 13 over Elliott. We've brought it up a few times on the podcast this year, his inconsistency, and that's how he got this name, the kettle. Nothing personal. It's just based on his up and down performance, hot and cold. I thought Frizzell was good without being great as well. There was definitely some effort there. So there's the player stats. Just trying not to sneeze here. It's still quite wet. Well, not wet, but it's very cold and dark here in Sydney at the moment. Let's get over the press conference note. So O'Brien basically said it was a hard one to watch and it was a hard one to be a part of. He mentioned that Manly played well and exposed their edges. Hard to disagree with that. He says that they need to pick themselves up, not let it define them as a squad and as a team, and they need to regroup this week against the Broncos. And he reckons they dipped their toe in at the start, and he referred to a lighter training load during the week. So he tends to talk about training and performance at training a lot in press conferences. I think he could do himself some favors and not do that. At the end of the day, they didn't up. I thought the effort was there in the first kind of 15, 20 minutes, and then some things went against them with their forward passes. And I don't know. O'Brien, I don't know. Maybe he needs a PR manager. He doesn't really handle the press conferences very well. He's got a little bit better as the season's gone on, but overall they were just outclassed, and there's no need to sort of go into too much detail about it. But Frizzell was also the same. He basically just said they weren't in the fight at any stage, and it never really looked like we were in the match. I was hoping that we'd hang in the match, and even when it was like 16-0. If we could just hang in there and, maybe score before halftime, there could have been a chance for us to get back into the fight, but it wasn't going to happen, was it? So, let's move on from that. And I've got some key thoughts here in terms of my analysis of the match. Okay, so I thought like I mentioned, I thought the forward started well for the first 15 minutes, but the completion rate after 15 minutes, I noticed on the screen, was at 57%. So, the completion rate was poor. The effort was there. And then there was a forward pass try to Manly. Commentators on Fox were blowing up. They didn't mention anything on Channel 9. I've watched both coverages and, I agree. It was forward. The ref was on the spot. It should have been blown. And Crossland's pass was marginal. I think it was forward as well. But when you get a call against you twice, there's a bit of a turnaround there. I mean, both tries shouldn't have been awarded. Manly got their 6 points out of that. And I think that definitely changed the momentum. So a note I've made here that were 6 of the 8 tries came from the outside backs. So 4 were on the left side where Thomas Cant was, and 2 were on the right where Dylan Lucas was. So they definitely targeted that side more, and they got us. So Hopewadi, I thought our Turbo played really well. He exposed us. Hopewadi's a good young talent, and they've got some good outside backs there. I thought we might have had enough grit, and we mentioned this in the podcast last week that it was going to be a matchup of our style of footy, which is a more grittier style of footy, a little bit more boring. But if you get them into the arm wrestle, and with a defensive mindset, we might have been able to grind out a win. But then on the other side of that, Manly, they like to move the ball around, and they got a little bit more speed and not as many injuries, and they had Turbo. And ultimately, that's their forwards did the job. I thought our pack went with their pack reasonably well. But I also thought that we dropped our level down after probably 20 minutes when we knew that we were kind of out of the match and things didn't go our way. And maybe they had a bit of an eye on the Broncos match, which is coming up. It's a big match at McDonald Jones on Saturday. So there's no point busting your ass trying to come back from 20-0 down. Maybe that was in the back of their minds, and I wouldn't even discourage that. I mean, what's the point in flogging yourself when you've got a big match coming up next week? So maybe that'll help us actually if the players, maybe they were at sort of 90%, 85%, and if that was the case, they might have a little bit more petrol in the tank. And O'Brien did cite it. He did say that they were a little bit fatigued coming into this match in terms of their player. He mentioned that there was a stat that they had played recently in six out of the 7 highest ball in play matches the Knights were involved in. So he gets some stats that we don't get access to, and that's the reason he said that he lightened the training load. And I think it was pretty evident after 20 minutes that we weren't in this match, and the boys probably just dropped their bundle a little bit, which not a bad idea really. Hopefully it pays off for us this week. Now, let's get to the 3-2-1. James put in his vote: 3 for Daniel Safidi, 2 for Will Price, 1 for Fletcher Sharp. I went with 3 for Fletcher Sharp. The Cessnock boy, he's had a pretty good steady start to first grade, some good highlights. Turbo showed him up there with a second try that Manly scored. And then Dylan Lucas, I thought, he put in a pretty solid performance. Did mention he needs to learn to pass as well and draw pass, but overall, I still thought the effort was pretty good from Lucas in it. It's pretty hard to nail down 3-2-1 when you get beat by 38 points. So, but I thought Sharp and Lucas were good. And then Safidi, he gets another tick for me. Jacob was pretty even as well. Daniel made a few more tackles, so that's why he got the 1 point for me. And if you have a look at the Player of the Year ladder, we've got Bradman Best on 25, Dane Gagai at 19, KPP at 19, Caleb Ponga at 18, Dylan Lucas 15, Jacob Safidi 15, and then there's a host of other players underneath. So, leading the way, big Bradman Best, and good luck tomorrow night in State of Origin. And something that I did notice when I was looking at this list before, we played this match against Manly without our Origin stars. Now, when you look at the Player of the Year ladder, Bradman Best is first, Dane Gagai is second, Caleb Ponga is third. There's 3 out of the top 5 Knights Player of the Year in the ladder for the Knighted podcast, and that pretty much explains. We can't blame 100%. The Knights, I think, had a chance to win that match at Brookvale, but we've just covered it. They didn't get off to a good start. They didn't have any luck, and we move on. We take the loss on the chin. So the NRL ladder, adjusted ladder with no buys. We are coming in 10th position. We are 8 wins and 9 losses at a win percentage at 47%. Look, we're still in the fight, aren't we? We're still in the fight here. We've got 7 matches left. We'll have a look at that in a second. We've got a bye coming up after the Broncos. So pretty critical match here to win. Going into a bye would get us 9 wins, 9 losses. And you'd have to think that with the Origin players coming back in a reasonably healthy squad that we'll see in the second part of this show, we don't have a lot of injuries at the moment. If we come through Origin unscathed and we beat the Broncos, then we're actually in a really strong position to make the finals. One thing I will say is I think we can pretty much cross out making the top four. The Sharks managed to get a win there. They're now at 11, so they're 3 wins ahead of us, both them and the Roosters. So, yeah, we can probably scratch our top 4 chances at this stage. And look, if we lose against the Broncos, we're probably struggling to make the top 8, unfortunately. And when we look at the 2024 pass or fail, which we do every week, so there we go. Round 19, we lost to the Seagulls 44-6. I made a note there that we were under par, but without 3 of our 4 best players, State of Origin, I still think the effort was overall under for 60 minutes. We just we add that to the lack of performance for the year. 12 matches, we've played well. We've aimed up. We've put in the efforts. So that means we've turned up in 5 matches this year. We haven't played to our best, and it's not great. It's not great that we haven't aimed up enough. And I still think we're a couple of wins short. We definitely could have been a couple more wins and been a bit higher on that ladder in the top 8 pretty firmly. Now, looking at the next 4 rounds, we've been looking at these 4 matches between buys. We've won 2 out of the last 3 matches, and so that will cross out the Sea Eagles match there, as you can see, and we'll move on to the Broncos match. If we can win this, we would have went 3 from 4, and we're going into the bye. Like I said, we're in a good position. So it's not doom and gloom for Knights fans, and we definitely still are in the running to make the top 8. And if we can put the Broncos away at home on Saturday, we'll go a long way towards making the finals. As long as there's no major injuries come out of State of Origin, I think there's still plenty to be positive about, but we can't afford any more injuries to our outside backs because we're pretty weak in terms of our recruitment there. The depth of our squad's not there. We got exposed. Rightio. It's a lot different without James. I think we're whipping through it a lot faster. So what I'm going to do is we're already at halftime, and I'll get onto our season sponsor message from MB Optimal Oral Care. MB Optimal Oral Care are our season sponsor of the Knighthood podcast. They have a range of zero plastic oral care products that are best for you and best for the planet. You can check out their full range of products via Chemist Warehouse online. Find the link in the description. So thank you, MB Optimal Oral Care, for sponsoring the Knighthood podcast for the 2024 season, which is going very fast. It feels like yesterday we did our first show. We did our season preview. So thanks for sponsoring the show. If you're interested, jump onto Chemist Warehouse online, search MBEMBI. That's MBEMBIOOC or Optimal Oral Care. And you can find a range of their oral care products that are best for you, best for the planet. Tongue scraping, so cleaning your tongue with a tongue scraper is the first step towards optimal oral care. So a lot of people don't have the greatest oral health. A lot of people can't afford to go to the dentist. So the best thing that you can do for yourself, even if you don't have a big budget, is make sure that you look after your oral care. You can buy yourself a tongue scraper for $23 to $25, which will last you pretty much the rest of your life. And you can use it every day. And by getting rid of that bad bacteria off your tongue, it can actually help improve the oral microbiome inside of the mouth, which is when you've got a good balanced oral microbiome, it stops you from getting things like tooth decay, gum disease, bad breath, and it also helps with gut health. So gut health's a big thing, especially when it comes to things like depression and mental health. So you need to have good gut health for overall wellness, and tongue scraping can contribute to that because it's the first place where the bacteria goes in the mouth and it sits on the tongue. So you get rid of it, and it does contribute a lot. And then the other thing that MB does is they have zero plastic products, which basically are biodegradable. They're biodegradable form of plastic. So it's much better for the environment. It doesn't cause a lot of damage, breaks down a lot faster than your traditional plastics. And everything from their toothbrushes to their floss picks and their dental cases has been designed so that it's better than what you find on the supermarket or chemist shelf. So check them out online. MB Optimal Oral Care by Chemist Warehouse. Rightio, second half of the show. We will run over now the injuries and suspensions for the Knights. So I've got the Knights there at an 88% full strength rating. We've basically got Ponga, Gay Guy, and Best on State of Origin duty. So the good thing here is that we're pretty healthy, and we've been healthy all year. But I think where we got exposed last week was the depth of our squad and the outside backs, as I mentioned. So ultimately, we've got a pretty healthy squad. We've got to get through Origin. Brodie Jones, I think it was just a head knock, so he'll miss this week by looks of it. I don't think he's been named. And Tawala, he's probably still about 4 weeks away. But it doesn't help to have injury in the outside backs. And I'm sure, I'm sure that cork on the thigh of Marju, that'll be a bit sore during the week as well. So it's not ideal. And then you've got the Origin players coming back from Origin. I'm sure they're going to be sore as well. So we're not going to be at 100% for Saturday, but we just have to win this match. If we want to stand up and make this season count, we've just got to get through it. So overall, though, the squad's pretty healthy. Broncos are also now, they've had injury issues. They've also got 4 players in State of Origin duty. So Walsh, Cobbo, Carrigan, and Haas. I've also given them an 88% full strength rating. I think Reynolds is going to come back this week. He's been named on the extended list, and no one else there is probably going to come back. But we'll get to the teams list now. But before that, we'll just run over the quick head-to-head record. So the Knights, we face the Broncos 5:30 p.m. Saturday, McDonald Jones Stadium. Now our record there at Marathon Stadium, as me and James like to joke, is we've only won 11 compared to their 17. So, it's pretty disappointing. On paper, it's not looking good for us at home. Let's have a look at the lineups. So for the Knights, we've got Ponga named at fullback. Mapalungi's been named on the wing after a decent game. Wasn't too bad, but wasn't too great either. So, but with Best and Gay Guy back, they've been named in the centres, depending on Origin, obviously, and Marju on the wing. Overall, that's a pretty strong looking outside 5. Then we've got Price has been named at 6, but we do have Gamble is on the extended, so there's a good chance that Gamble will come in for Price. Hastings obviously will be still there at 7. We've got Daniel Safidi in the front row of Leo Thompson, Phoenix Crossland at 9. And in the back row, we've got Tyson Frizzell and Kai Pearce-Paul. Then we've also got Adam Elliott there at lock. So a pretty strong forward pack from Newcastle. I did make a call that I'd prefer to see Croker there on the starting side. He's on an extended as well. We'll get to that in a second. Let's run through the 1 to 13 for the Broncos. So we've got Tristan Saylor in 1, Corey Oates in the wing, with Jesse Arthurs. Now, Arthurs is a fast player, and we saw last week what happened with speed on the edges for Manly. So that's definitely something to be a little bit wary of. And then we've got Tony Staggs and Mariner in the centres, both pretty accomplished centres. Ezra Mam and then Rogers. I haven't seen a lot of Rogers, but as I said, I think Reynolds is going to come back this week. They're going to come all guns blazing, I believe, this week, the Broncos. I think there's 7 wins and 9 losses on the ladder, so it's kind of it's a must win. If they lose this match, it's going to be really hard for them to make the top 8. But I mean, the other way that Kevy could look at it too is he might possibly rest the Origin stars and write this game off and just hope they can get through it. And then after Origin's finished, then he might bring them all back and hope that they just win every game. And it's there's an argument to maybe that's the best play for them as opposed to pushing the limit with players backing up from Origin. But yeah, we'll wait and see how it goes. Obviously, we're going to see the final teams 1 hour before kickoff. In the forwards, Jensen and Wilson are the 2 front rowers. Billy Walters is the hooker, and then you've got Bikora and Ricky in the back row. Pretty good back row there. and then Hetherington in there at lock, but you'll probably see Carrigan back up from Origin. Let's get into the interchange for the Knights. We've got Brayley, Safidi, Hetherington, and Lucas. And then on the extended, we've got Gamble, Croker, Cant, Sharp, and Jenkins. So we'll wait and see. We'll just wait and see who actually gets the call up. I wouldn't mind seeing Gamble back into the starting side. I think Price has been handy. And if you leave him there, he'll continue to get better. But Gamble's a more experienced player. I'd be bringing him into the starting side, maybe considering putting Price onto the bench, maybe get rid of Brayley. I wouldn't do that. I think I mentioned it in my season preview that Brayley, he is a key to our season, and although he hasn't sort of set the world on fire, he's a pretty solid player. So if he can come on for 20 minutes and do a job, I'd leave Brayley there, and I'd probably bring in Gamble for Price. It's been a good sort of 3-game introduction for Price, and he'll get a lot of experience from that. But at this stage of the season, I want to see Gamble back there with Hastings, Ponga back there and fullback, and maybe they can just try and get a bit of last season's run home form. Let's go through the Broncos from 14. So B. Moser, T. Smoothie, J. Karapani, Martin Tapau, and then on the extended, Cernu, Payax, and then here come the big names: Reece Walsh, Solomon Colo, Patrick Carrigan, Payne Haas, and Adam Reynolds. So, yeah, interesting extended there for the Broncos. I reckon they'll all play, all those players. I reckon Kevy will go in all guns blazing, thinking that they can get a win here against Newcastle, especially after what he saw last week. He'd be confident, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow night? Looking forward to the game too. Should be a good match. Rightio. So we got Chris Butler. He's the ref, and we've got a 55% win rate with him at the helm. Broncos have got a 36% win rate, so we might have an edge there. The weather should be about 15 degrees. No rain, overcast, humidity low, and very windy, 40 k's per hour. Didn't say what direction it was coming from. If it's that strong, I'm probably going to be calling it coming from the west. And the west can cause some issues for kickers at McDonald Jones. And, there might be some swirly bombs thrown up and some hard goal kicks, conversions. Rightio, I'm going to run through some analysis here. So, Knights and Broncos pretty even when it comes to injuries. Knights have got 3 players compared to the Broncos 4 backing up from State of Origin. So that's going to be really interesting. So obviously the final lineups, will play a big role picking the winner in this match. We'll get to betting soon. I think the Knights might have a slight edge with the ref, but I wouldn't count on it. How can you count on the refs these days? But I'd rather it be for us than against us in terms of the previous stats. Both teams are fighting for a top 8 spot. The Knights have a bad home record versus the Broncos, which we went over. Brisbane have an advantage with their attack. I think they've scored 80 more points than us this season. On the ladder, we're pretty even in defence, so very similar stats to last week versus Manly. Last year's match was close. I remember, I think, the Knights were holding in probably like a 10-point lead with 15 minutes to go, and we blew it. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. But it was a close match last year. We did play pretty well against them, and that was in Brisbane. I made a note here. Look, if we can get off to a good start against the Broncos, and if we can get on top of them early, I think we'll get the chocolates. So there's we'll get to my selections and predictions in a minute, but I think that's the key to the match. The Knights haven't really handled adversity very well this year. If things don't go the way to suit their game plan, or things go wrong in the match with the ref or whatever, we generally have lost this year. So that's not great. So I think the start for the Knights is key. and they've got to get off to a good start and I think get a lead to be able to beat the Broncos. I think if Brisbane get in front early, it's all dependent on who lines up for them as well. But we definitely have to get off to a good start in this match. So let's get into our season betting tally. James and I both lost last week. James went for a bet. Knights 1-12. I just went head to head. We went down, and overall, just a quick recap of our season to date. Well, that takes in James at 1% profit for the year. So that loss didn't help his stats. The rookie, and look overall, the Knights winning percentage is 44% this year. So James is doing better than what you'd be doing if you were back in the Knights head to head. And as a rookie, he's doing pretty well. So yeah, disappointing though. Disappointing loss. We did roll the dice a little bit with this one. If we won, we would have been celebrating at the bar, but we didn't. So overall, my record's at 11% profit turnover for the year. My selection strike rate's at 14 wins, 9 losses, 61%. So still pretty good, especially considering the team's underperforming in terms of their strike rate. My head-to-head average winning odds is $1.82. So overall, my aim for the year was to get to 25% profit on turnover, but at the moment it's at 11. We'll get into my selections again pretty soon, but yeah, it's a tough match this week, and I'm coming off a couple of losses, so I think I'm going to be a bit more conservative this year, as aggressive, and I think that could be the play. Depends on the final teams, and maybe a live bet is the way to go here. If the Knights get off to a good start, I'd be pretty confident that we'd go on with it and get the victory. So probably leaning towards a live bet at this stage. And if you're doing your tips and stuff, good luck to you. It's really hard to pick this. Broncos are favourites, and we'll get to that here in a second. But before we do that, I'll just go over my betting notes from last week. So we took a chance on the Knights at longer odds. They were paying $3.05. Poor starts, and the ref calls not going our way didn't help us, especially with our completion rate. Manly were too good. We got exposed, and it was a bad loss. So that's the final say there. And when it comes to the top sport current odds, if you're having a bet, have it with Toppy. Good Aussie bookmaker. Knights to win, 220. At home, not bad, but who knows who's going to line up for Newcastle and how these odds are going to change before the match. Broncos to win, $1.67. So, yeah, I wouldn't be touching this match before the final lineups. Knights at the line at the moment is plus 3.5, but that's likely to move at $1.90. Knights 1-12, $3.55. Knights 13 plus at $4.80. So, yeah, the tip is to tune in to X live before the match if you want to consider what our bets are and factor that into your own decision making for the match. That's the best way to do it. Tune into X. I'm leaning towards a live bet at this stage for this week. So, things roll through a lot faster without James, mate. We miss you. Our hearts go out to you. It was a bad loss. So sorry about that. And let me just check. I think we've got a couple of comments here. I might just chuck those up. So shout out to Angelo. Thanks for tuning in again, mate. Shocking result. Attack and defense poor, and it didn't look like there was much creativity. And look, I got to agree with you there, mate. We definitely our game plan. It just doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and there's no plan B. And we didn't even have a crack, did we? So I definitely agree. There wasn't any creativity, and there wasn't any plan B. It's not a result that I'm surprised by. I thought ultimately, if you look at that game and the odds $3.05, maybe the Knights win that one time out of 3, and the Manly win it 2 times out of 3. I backed this to, I guess I backed our style of play and to grit it out, and I didn't rate Manly. I didn't think Manly were as good as that. So, they showed us up. There's another comment here. So Do we think there needs to be a change of coach if the finals are not made? I had mentioned on other podcasts that thanks. That's a good question, Angelo. I think I don't think we're ever really going to win a comp with Adam O'Brien as our head coach. I think we've got a new recruitment manager, and there's definitely some key changes that need to be made to the squad. And O'Brien is on a long-term contract. And I think what's going to happen is that we'll probably fumble through this year. If we make the finals, we'll probably bow out pretty early, just like we have every other year with O'Brien when we've made the finals. And if we don't make the finals, like your question says, I still think you'll be. There. It just depends on how they finish the year. If they finish the year really bad, I'm calling for his head. I don't see him as the coach that's actually going to take us to win a grand final. It's also good to have a long, stable coach there, and I don't mind him as a bloke, but I do question whether he's the guy to take us to win a grand final. And I guess you got to ask yourself who else is there to replace him. Who's going to do a better job? I've also mentioned that Brad Arthur, and I mentioned that previously, but I didn't realize that Brad Arthur and O'Brien have a history. I think they come from a similar sort of background with their careers and when they grew up and stuff. So that'd be interesting. Maybe bring Brad Arthur to the club. Maybe get them working together. That's a possibility. They're mates. I don't know whether they're too many chefs in the kitchen. But yeah, if they don't make the finals this year, they definitely seriously need this contract extension they've given O'Brien. And I think it's I don't think Knights fans should have to go through another season of mediocre results. I thought this is the year that we really should step up and make our claims to being a top four side. And if you go back and look at the ladder, which we'll do quickly, I'll flick through these slides. So there we are. We're on 8 wins. Another 2 wins, which I've mentioned in the season review, we'd be on 10. So we'd be a fringe top 4 side. So we're pretty close. But that's the question on O'Brien. Is he just the coach that's going to get you into the finals and, you keep bowing out early? Maybe with some squad changes next year, maybe he can get a better result. But I'd be looking pretty closely at who's around him, and I'd be looking very closely at Brad Arthur. So another question. This match. Yeah, well, I think we said that last week. Who wants it more? And it looked like Manly, they wanted it as much as us last week, and then they just outclassed us. So, and then we dropped our bundle. So, yeah, it's a pretty desperate match there. But what we did say is that it's going to depend on who lines up in this match. If the Origin players don't back up for Brisbane, they might just say, they might kind of concede and just think, we've got to get our Origin players here through healthy. We've got to get our squad together. Reynolds is back soon. Let's wait until next week. So that's a strong possibility. And what I will do is just have a quick look at the NRL draw, because what is important to look at here is do the Broncos have a bye following this match? So answer to that question is no, they don't. So they play the Broncos. Okay, let's have a quick look here at the Broncos run home. So they've got the Bulldogs at home on the 27th of July. So that's a week after this night's match. Then they've got the Titans away. So that's still a match in Queensland. Then they've got the Cowboys away, another match in Queensland, but another away match. Then they've got a bye. Then they've got a home match against the Eels. So look at that. They've got the next 4 matches, they're all in Queensland. Then they play the Dolphins in Queensland at Suncorp Stadium. So they're playing a away game against the Dolphins at their own stadium. And then they've got a home game against the Storm. So that, God, I find that quite frustrating to look at because they don't leave Queensland. This is their last home game, away game, out of the state. So there you go. We might get lucky this week. They might rest their Origin players. And if they do, I'd be suggesting to get on the Knights. Only if our Origin players back up. I wouldn't be backing our outside backs against Brisbane. They'd probably still beat us if we put the same lineup out there this week, even without their Origin stars. So that's quite interesting, and it's pretty frustrating to see that that's a massive advantage for the Broncos. They do have a good run home here. Let's keep running through this. So, okay, if you can't keep this, Angela, you made another comment here in regards to the coach. So if you can't keep improving year on year, you can't help feeling that there should be a change, and it's hard to disagree with that. It's also you got to look at how they measure improvement. They can talk about improvement that's not on the ladder and not in the semi-final results, but ultimately that's, I think, what it comes down to. And I think Knight supporters have been through enough. We deserve to, now with a solid financially stable club, a great fan base. I think the junior programs are doing pretty well at the moment. They've got to get the squad management right, and then they've got to get the coaching right. But we've got enough players here to be a top four challenger every year. So look, if we don't make the finals this year, yeah, I agree. We definitely need to have a hard look at the coach. And final comment here from Angelo. You think Brisbane are a far better side than they've shown this year? They were in the final last year, but they've had injuries and a lot of inconsistency. And but this is probably the time that they turn all that around, isn't it? So I guess the question there is that going to happen now, this round? Or are they going to think, look, all of our games are in Queensland after this night's match. Let's just rest the Origin players. Let's get through this round. We might jag a win against Newcastle, and if we do, that's great. And if we don't, we'll back ourselves to really go on a run in our own home state. So, I think that's a strong possibility. But yeah, thanks for chiming in, Angelo. Appreciate the comments there. Let's give a sec here. So look, final shout out to James. Much different show without you tonight, a bit faster. Thanks for chiming in to Angelo, so I don't feel like a loner. Look, pretty critical match this week coming up against the Broncos. Some interesting thoughts that we've gone through there. So definitely some good content there to consider. Definitely watch the final lineups before this match. If you're thinking about betting, tune into X before the match. Within sort of 30 minutes, I'll make my final call about 10 minutes before the match. Sitting at 11% profit for the year, so definitely better than you get in the bank. And we're only sort of 19 round 20 now, so we're aiming to maybe do a Broncos, have a good end to the season. We definitely want to go on a good run home with the bets, and just being passionate Knight supporters, we want to see the team aim up here and get into the finals and be competitive. And that's what Adam O'Brien's job is, and that's what all the players in this squad have got in front of them. So, look, thanks for tuning in tonight. If you've liked the content, please give us a subscribe on YouTube and a thumbs up for the show. We really appreciate the support. We're gradually building a fan base, which is cool. And we're also getting popular on the audio, so Spotify and on Apple. And as I mentioned, we are putting some social media up on Facebook, but mainly on X if you want to tune in to get tips and in-game live betting updates. So, look, that wraps us up for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Let's hope the Knights get this team song in the sheds at home on Saturday evening. Thanks again.